Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Ramesh and this is my screencast for AMER200's gender unit. Throughout this unit we have looked at many aspects of gender in America, in particular how gender has influenced the rights and freedoms individuals can attain in American society. Also how marriage can be viewed as a form of slavery because of the restrictions it puts on a female individual's life, and how the term domestic can be used to define an individual's role at home or in the workplace. We begin this unit by looking at how society discriminated against the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT community because they did not conform to society's definition of a gender lifestyle. Many states across the country had passed laws discriminating against homosexuality at work and in public spaces. Individuals from across the country were arrested for what was deemed lewd and dissolute behavior. One particular event that we focused on was the Stonewall riots, which began on June 28, 1969, when officers from the NYPD raided the Stonewall in a bar in New York's Greenwich Village section, whose patrons were from the LGBT community. Unlike other raids performed at the Stonewall Inn, the patrons on this night had enough of the discrimination from police and fought back against the discrimination at the hands of them. The ensuing riots brought attention to the discrimination faced by the LGBT community to a national stage, and helped to unify the LGBT community by forming groups across the country to support their cause. On the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots, the first Gay Liberation Parade took place in New York and around the country to celebrate the birth of Gay Pride. The image to the right shows participants at the first Gay Liberation Day Parade in New York. It is important to note that many New York City officers turned their backs at the parade participants because of the events of the riots from the previous year and their disapproval of the LGBT community. From our first article we look at is an excerpt from the Advocate describing the anger the LGBT members felt regarding the discrimination from society. I will highlight here the section which says, We are tired of the targets of manipulation and exploitation, tired of being maggots excuse for raids upon our assembly, tired of being someone else's scapegoats for some other reason, tired of being threatened and harassed and entrapped and told that what we were, what to do and how to do it, when to do it, how to feel, what to say, how to be, what to be. Y'all can be it outside nor you inside. We ride because rich or poor, young or old, we dare to be ourselves. We want to be ourselves. We want to laugh and to play in joy. We ride to be gay. For our next slide, we look at how marriage can be viewed as a form of slavery for women. Once a woman entered into marriage, she had no existence independent from that of her husband. This is similar to how slaves of the 17th and 18th centuries considered themselves property of a slave owner once they were bought. Marriage also bounds a woman to work of the home with the duties of sexual intercourse, childbirth, housework, and child rearing, similar to how an African slave was bound to their duties in the field or at home. Women can feel that the act of marriage is an unbreakable bond similar to that of a African slave in servitude. For our next side, we look at an excerpt from this Corner Perry side, which says, under the common law doctrine of Coventry, a woman's property usually went to her husband. With the vesting of the I do, the man assumed the absolute ownership of his wife's personal property and for all practical purposes her real estate as well. He also gained control of any wages or other income accrued by his spouse. Technically, this meant that a man could do anything he wishes with his wife's personal possessions. For our next slide, we look at the term domestic and how it was used to influence an individual's gender's role at home and in the workplace. The term domestic is used to describe the upper middle class white woman who represented the American vision of family and responsibility of the home. The term domestic can be used to describe the rights an individual had in society, as in the case of a female African slave who was not considered a citizen and did not fall into the category of representing a domestic lady of the house. Also, the idea of domestic continues to be used today to describe work performed by a woman in the house, but these duties are now performed by immigrants or women of color. The image on the right shows a 19th century woman taking care of the duties of the home. From our final site, we look at a excerpt from the Teach U.S. History site, and I will highlight here, where it says traditionally it was believed that women were essentially different in character from men. This was a convention necessity because it was maintained that they were here on earth for a different purpose than men. Women were homemakers. They nourished their families and kept them safe from the cruel world, while husbands depended on their wives to maintain solace in their home. For my primary source, I chose Johnny Tillman's article, Welfare is a Woman's Issue, from Miss Magazine. Tillman explains that if an individual is a woman, a black woman, a poor woman, or a fat woman, she is counted less as a human being, and if you have all of the described traits, you do not count at all, except as a statistic. Connections. This statement connects with the idea we learned where gender and race influence how an individual is viewed within society. It also shows connections with the idea that society's perception of gender can discriminate against genders or groups it sees as different from their traditional norms. Also, women are forced into a dependency on the welfare system, as Tillman says, because they are the worst educated, the least skilled, and the lowest paid people. Women also are totally responsible for children and are viewed as a dependent by society. In this connection, this statement expresses the ideas that an individual gender, in this case a female, can be restricted from the educational and work opportunities available to her because of her gender in a male-dominated society. It also places the woman within a domestic capacity within the household where she is completely responsible for children. And also Tillman says about 99% of welfare families are headed by women. The system is still dependent on the status of a man within a family household. If a man is present, aid will not be provided to a woman, since a man is viewed as able-bodied to work for his family. Tillman uses the analogy that when welfare is provided, because a man is not present, the woman is basically trading in a man for another man being the welfare system. Once a woman is part of this new marriage with the welfare system, she cannot divorce him, be in welfare, or have sex at all because her welfare aid will be cut off. Connections with what we've learned. This statement connects with the idea we learned on gender because it shows us how society has put the female gender as dependent on the presence of a male within the household. Even if a male is not present, the status of the female gender as her rights and freedom is still dependent on a male. It also connects to the idea that marriage can be a form of slavery for women because they are never able to break away from society's need for them to be tied to a male. Thank you very much for watching my screencast, and I look forward to reading your comments.